most basic elements of life. Chemically, we need it, live off of it. 70% of our body is consumed with water. Water was the first sign that Helen Keller was able to connect with. And although everybody has heard of Helen Keller, and I will review the story of her life, I'll make the argument today that perhaps her greatest achievements had nothing to do with the blind community or the deaf community, but rather with communicating with the world as a whole. Communication is one of our most basic elements in life as it is. I mean, here we stand taking a simple communication class. Helen grew up in Alabama, was born in 1880 and died in 1968. She grew up in a fortunate family and was born hearing with sight. But as she became ill at 18 months old, she was found deaf, blind, and mute. Although at 6 months old she was able to communicate with her mother, just as newborns grow and communicate with their families, she lost all sense of communication. At 7 years old, she had found a way to communicate with her parents and had very simple ways of signing. Not American Sign Language, but rather just simple ways that they found to get through the day. But as Anne Sullivan, her instructor, entered her life, she began to learn words such as doll, first just finger spelling. But as Helen gripped her doll, she had no idea what D-O-L-L was. And so it wasn't until the day that Anne Sullivan took her to the water pump, knelt down with her, bringing water over her hands and signing W-A-T-E-R, water, that she made the connection. Miscommunication is just a common problem as it is throughout life. And so it became Helen's goal in life to overcome the obstacles of miscommunication. Indeed, as she did grow and develop and learn how to communicate through finger spelling, braille, touching people's mouths in order to understand the words, typing, and then going on to learn how to communicate vocally, she did go on to be educated. She did fight for the obstacles and barriers to be overcome for people that were blind and deaf. But what most people don't know about her is the way that she affected the communication world, or world of communication as a whole. For instance, she was a humanitarian and an educator that fought for women's rights. She was one that fought for contraception. She fought for women's suffrage. And then she went on to meet Winston Churchill and affected national communications, national relations as a whole, communicating with one another on a scale that would not promote miscommunication and misunderstandings. She also met with Mark Twain and affected the communication role on a literary context, and she wrote her own books. So I ask you to look at her not as an advocate for the blind and deaf, but rather an advocate that affected our communication in the world as a whole. Because just as water is a basic element of life, Helen Keller recognized communication as one of the most basic elements of life. So as I welcome my child into the world, I'll remind him that there's more ways of communicating other than vocally, but rather ask for more. Say please. If you want more water, say water. And I'll just remind him that there are more ways to communicate than vocally. There's a start to everything. Your body language, with your hands,